A long time ago, in a quiet little town called Meadow Hill, there lived an elderly woman named Nanny Tara. She was very old, with white hair and many lines on her face, but her eyes were bright and full of love. Everyone in Meadow Hill cared for her because she was always cheerful, even when life was hard. She lived alone in a small cottage next to a big peepal tree. Her husband had died many years ago, and she didn't have any children, but she never spoke of being lonely. Each morning, she would sit under the peepal tree, smiling kindly at everyone who passed by. People loved to talk to her because her words felt warm and peaceful, like a soft shawl on a chilly evening. The people in Meadow Hill worked hard every day. Some were farmers growing crops, others were builders making wooden furniture, and many sold food and clothes at the small town market. But life wasn't always easy. Sometimes there was no rain, and the crops dried up. At other times, people fell ill and couldn't go to work. Many people in Meadow Hill often felt worried and sad. But Nanny Tara always had a gentle smile on her face. One day, a young woman named Mira came to visit her. Mira had tears on her cheeks, and her voice was shaking as she spoke. "I don't know what to do, Nanny," she said. "My husband went to Riverport to find a job, but I haven't heard from him. My children are hungry, and I feel afraid. What if something bad has happened?" Nanny Tara looked at her with soft, kind eyes and gave a gentle smile. "Come, sit beside me," she said, tapping the ground next to her. "Tell me, what are you afraid will happen?" Mira wiped her tears with the edge of her scarf and said, "I don't know, Nanny. Everything feels like it's falling apart. What if he can't find work? What if he forgets us? What if we have nothing to eat?" Nanny Tara listened quietly and then shook her head slowly. "Mira," she said, "when our minds are full of scary thoughts, our hearts feel heavy, and life becomes harder. But if we fill our minds with hopeful thoughts, our hearts feel lighter. Sometimes, good things come when we think in a better way." Mira looked at her, unsure. "But how can I think happy thoughts when things are so bad?" Nanny Tara smiled again and said, "Let me tell you a little story." Nanny Tara began to speak in a calm, gentle voice. There was once a poor man named Ravi. He had nothing, no food, no home, and no family. One day he sat beside a river, crying with sadness. He didn't know what to do. An old woman was walking by and saw him sitting there. She stopped and asked, "Why are you crying, son?" Ravi said, "I have nothing. How can I ever be happy?" The old woman smiled kindly and said, "But you do have something. You have the river that flows every day. You have the trees that give you shade and fruit. You have the sun that gives you warmth and light. Look around you. The world is full of life and beauty. If you only look at what you don't have, you will always feel sad. But if you see what you do have, you will feel peace in your heart." Mira listened closely, her eyes fixed on Nanny Tara's face. Nanny Tara continued. Ravi stopped crying. He looked at the river, the trees, and the bright sky. For the first time in many days, he felt a little better. From that day on, he decided to work hard and stay hopeful. Slowly, his life began to change. Nanny Tara turned to Mira and said, "You see, my dear, it wasn't magic that changed his life. It was the way he began to think. When we think in a good way, we feel strong enough to face our troubles. But when we only focus on our worries, we feel weak and stuck." Mira thought about this. Then she asked softly, "Do you really think my thoughts can change things?" Nanny Tara nodded gently. "Yes, child. If you wake up each day and tell yourself, 'Today will be a good day,' you'll feel brave enough to care for your children and deal with whatever comes. But if you only think about what might go wrong, you'll feel too sad to move." Mira slowly wiped her tears and gave a small nod. "I think I understand now, Nanny. I will try to think better thoughts from today." Nanny Tara smiled warmly. "That's the first step, my dear." From that day on, Mira began to follow Nanny Tara's advice. Each morning, she told herself, "Today will be a good day." She got up early, looked after her children, and did her best with the little she had. Even though life was still hard, something inside her started to change. She didn't feel as afraid anymore. She worked with hope in her heart and kept waiting for news from her husband. A few weeks later, Mira received a letter. Her hands shook as she opened it. It was from her husband. He had found a job in Riverport and was sending money back home. He promised he would return to visit them soon. Myra's eyes filled with happy tears. She ran as fast as she could to Nanny Tara's cottage, holding the letter in her hand. "Nanny, he found work. He's sending money. He's okay," she cried with joy. Nanny Tara smiled gently, her eyes full of warmth. "You see, Mira," she said, "when we keep hope in our hearts, good things often follow. Troubles will always come," she continued, "but when we face them with a strong and hopeful heart, we can overcome them." Word of Nanny Tara's wisdom slowly spread through all of Meadow Hill. More and more people began coming to her, young, old, poor, and worried. They shared their problems, and she listened with care and patience. She always gave the same gentle advice: fill your heart with good thoughts. Let hope guide your days. As the villagers began to follow her words, something started to shift. People felt a little lighter. They still had challenges, but they didn't face them alone or in fear. They started each day with a bit more strength and a bit more hope. And they respected and loved Nanny Tara even more for the peace and light she brought into their lives. In time, Nanny Tara became known as the heart of Meadow Hill. People said that just sitting with her for a few minutes made their worries feel smaller. She never claimed to have special powers. All she shared were simple truths, that our thoughts are powerful, and our hearts are stronger when filled with hope. She would often say, "What we think can shape our lives. If we choose to see the light, even in dark times, we find strength we didn't know we had." Life in Meadow Hill still had its ups and downs. There were still dry seasons, illnesses, and hard days. But the people no longer gave up so easily. They remembered Nanny Tara's words. They reminded each other to think good thoughts. They helped one another with kindness. And slowly, the town began to feel brighter, not just on the outside, but in people's hearts too. Nanny Tara's small cottage by the peepal tree became a place where people gathered, not just to talk, but to learn how to carry peace inside them. One day, a young boy asked her, "Nanny, is it really true that thinking good thoughts can change everything?" She smiled, touched his head gently, and said, "It may not change the world around you right away. But it changes you. And when you change, the world feels different too." She looked up at the sun shining through the leaves. "Always remember, my dear, a heart full of hope is a heart full of power. No matter how dark things seem, light will find a way when you believe it can." And so, the people of Meadow Hill learned an important lesson, that when we choose to be thankful, hopeful, and kind, life becomes easier to bear. This message is true for everyone, everywhere. Even when life is hard, if we think good thoughts and stay hopeful, we can find peace, strength, and joy, and we can pass that light on to others. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy our motivational stories, please comment on what you learned, and do not forget to like and share. Till next time, bye.